back with Kerbal Space Program. Jonny here. Now, when we left off, we were talking about how to get a better rocket design. So let's try to do that today. Now, let's get this trash out of here for now. So what did we unlock? We unlocked new fuel tanks, bigger fuel tanks, and fuel ducts. Now, as I've mentioned prior to this, these allow you to connect different fuel tanks, and therefore the fuel within different tanks can flow into other tanks, and we'll see how we can apply that. And of course, most of what you'll see here I've taken from Scott Manley's videos, just watching his designs, and yeah, going back to the Asparagus staging concept is what we're going to be trying to implement here today, and we'll see what that is in a second. But for now, let's just worry about the top stage of our rocket here. And I think what I want to do is like something like this, and then we connect those to the center fuel tank like that. And then what do? You go Terrier engine. Again, I'm not sure if whether to do 3 of these or if 1 is actually enough. What am I missing here? How can I have this much thrust to weight ratio with a Terrier engine? That's weird, because I thought that last episode we did exactly this, and we had like a 0.8 thrust to weight. Oh, our staging is messed up. I see. So it is like very low. It's 0.5 thrust to weight ratio. That's probably enough for outer space. So I'll tell you what, we'll give that a try. Yeah, we'll give that a try. And for now, let's just do our run-of-the-mill aerodynamics there. You get your decoupler down here. And now we have our next stage. So what I'm thinking of doing here is just packing some of these big fuel tanks. I'm thinking whether to do 1 or 2 here. So that is the equivalent of 2 of these, which I think is what we had previously, to be honest. I'm just checking the staging there. So this is gonna be in the same one. And then down here, tell you what, we'll pop 1 more of these. And we'll go with a swivel engine for maneuverability. And what we'll do next is the actual Asparagus part, which basically consists of, we start with bilateral synergy here. We do something like this. We pack 2 big fuel tanks on the side, as such. Each of these can have the reliant fuel engines, I think. I mean, the issue with those is that, so we'll do it the other way around. We'll pack a reliant. So remember, the reliant cannot turn very well, but it's a bit more powerful. So we'll use that for the final stage. But the first one is gonna have swivels, so we can turn correctly. We're gonna have this. Now I understand that having like a trilateral synergy followed by something else might not be the best idea, but let's just try this out first. And we'll just copy the same here on the other side. Alright, they're not quite on the same height. Let me just try to get that right. close enough. So what's the idea here? Well, the idea is that we use our newly obtained fuel ducts to be smart about this. And what we do is we connect two of these engines directly to the middle, like this. You can see that this one is also connected. And then we also connect these ones to the ones on the side. Again, you can see it was done symmetrically on the other side. So let's kind of unpack what happens here. So first, we fire all of these engines, and the fuel is going to flow through the ducts. So the central fuel tank will not actually deplete. So we'll be depleting the external fuel tanks first. And when this gets to the end, we'll just decouple. And then we're going to have essentially the center fuel tank and these two. And again, these two will empty faster than the center because of the fuel duct, which will cause these in turn to empty out, and then we can ditch those. And by that point, we're gonna have a very considerable altitude already, and this fuel tank will be completely full still. So, you know, that's way better than not having the fuel ducts, because without the fuel ducts, you would have to carry empty rockets, empty fuel tanks and inactive rockets. Anyways, this just turns out to be very smart, and it's something really cool that I picked up again from some of Scott Manley's videos. Now the question is whether or not we have enough power in all our stages here. So let's just try to figure that out. So we're gonna fire those 4 rockets. We can also fire the center one, that's fine. And first we're going to decouple these external. So it's these, isn't it? Yes. Just making sure. So decouple those. Then you decouple the secondary ones. Then the next decoupling is up there, turning on the Terrier. We finally can ditch the side containers, and yeah, this looks good to me. So let's just look at our numbers here. So first stage, looking good. Second stage, it's fine. It won't last long, but we have enough push. And by the time we get to our final stage with the Terrier engine, we should be way out in space already, hopefully. And you can see we have pretty large delta V's by that point. So one more thing we want to do here is get a landing gear of some sort in case we were able to land. So there you go. Let's just retract that for now. So we got something that could potentially work. And one more thing I want to add, some lights. Let me just, and the idea is that if we end up landing where there isn't sun shining, we're going to want some lights just to see how far from the ground we are. Cool. Alright. I think we have everything we need. So enough delay on my part there. We're gonna give this design a shot. So, all systems nominal. Check our staging again. Decouple those first. Decouple those. Boom, boom, boom. I think we're fine. Let's give this a try. Full throttle. Jabs ready. Let's go. Okay, we can probably reduce our thrust a little bit. We also have no aerodynamics. I completely forgot to add aerodynamics to this thing. And probably the moment we try to turn, it's gonna be disastrous. I'm just trying to not move away from the velocity vector too much. And let's keep an eye on these fuel tanks. You can see they deplete at different speeds. So we just want to make sure that when these fuel tanks are empty, we ditch them. So there you go. Whoa, what happened there? Okay, let's revert to assembly here. So what happened there is that we decoupled and our rockets exploded against our ship. Pretty painful stuff. Let's put some winglets there. Where do we want winglets? Probably on the main ship as such. Let's try that. So we just gotta wait until the fuel tanks are completely empty. I think that was the only mistake we made there. So let's try this again. It'll be interesting to see if we have enough fuel with this, or if there's something fundamental that we did wrong in our design. We'll find out. Turn our speed down a little bit. I'm not too sure what the balance is. If you accelerate too much, of course, you can see we start having some aerodynamic break happening there, where we're getting slowed down by aerodynamics, but at the same time I'm pretty sure you want to have a minimum. Whoa, okay, I see the problem there. So we're emptying the wrong tanks first, or decoupling the wrong ones first. I thought we had it right, but clearly we didn't. Oh, I see. I have the direction of the fuel ducts wrong. So it actually matters. It matters like the direction you place your fuel ducts. You can see there are some little arrows there. That indicates the direction of the flow. So it's important that you get that right. So that's why when we decoupled these fuel tanks, they still had fuel in them. That's fine. We'll just call these simulations. Aside from that, I found that the rocket works pretty well in terms of maneuverability. Yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see if we have a good amount of delta V or not. It's a bit deceiving. So check our external fuel tanks like this. They're empty. Decouple. Okay, no explosion. Good sign. Again, keep an eye on the external fuel tanks. I feel like SSAS is actually fucking me up a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of instability here. So maybe I should have winglets in the outer tanks as well, because we haven't been able to perform a good gravity turn in here. I think it may be necessary to add some some solid fuel boosters, just to gain a little bit more altitude. So the good thing is that right now we have this full tank, so we're being very efficient. But at the same time, is this enough? Like, I'm looking at this delta V and it doesn't seem nearly enough. So I'll tell you what, let's go back to the drawing board a little bit here. We need to gain more altitude, and I think the best way to achieve that right now is to just pop some solid rocket, some solid fuel rocket boosters down here. Not that's ridiculous. Oh yeah, because we had bilateral symmetry. Okay, fair enough. So we just do like some hammers. Copy this. So what does that look like? So we have our hammers fire first. We decouple all of these. And at the same time we fire all the other engines. And then we go as we did before. So what did we achieve with this? We gained 400 delta V for free, essentially. And yeah, we'll pop some extra winglets. Probably, I don't know if that seems like a great idea, to be honest. Tell you what, we'll give it a shot. I mean, they're very much towards the top side of the ship, of the rocket, which is usually a terrible idea. But we did have a little bit of instability. So what I'll do though is disable any movement in these. So I just want them to be surfaces to stabilize my ship, but I don't want my ship to be overly sensitive to controls. Anyways, it seems to make sense to me. We'll find out if it works or not. So SAS on, full throttle, fire, and these are terribly inefficient, so they're just gonna run out very quickly. But hopefully they'll give us just that extra little bit push that we needed. Hopefully we got our staging right. It seems like everything is in order. Okay, so we essentially gained like 2,000 meters plus like significant acceleration. So again, keep an eye on the exterior fuel tanks. Ditch them as appropriate. Can throttle down a little bit. Okay, there we go. Does seem we're more stable with the extra winglets. We have a little bit of roll creeping into our movement, which is a little bit annoying. But we're getting an acceptable gravity turn here. We still have quite a bit of fuel. It looks like the solid fuel boosters did make a significant difference. So these run out, we ditch. And now we still got quite a bit of fuel. Again, the game changer here is that now our top stage has a lot of fuel compared to what it had before. So hopefully if we're able to get this thing in orbit, we're gonna have plenty of fuel to perform the experiments we need around the moon, or maybe even landing, who knows. So now that we're in the thin atmosphere, I should have already probably thrusted a little bit harder than that. Again, as far as I know, the only reason you want to throttle down a little bit during ascent is when you're going through the thick atmosphere where it weighs you down a lot. At least that's my understanding of it. So we go as usual here. We know we don't have crazy thrust to weight, so you know, it's better for us to start burning early here rather than later, just to make sure we don't go past our apoapse, because that would result in a very not circular orbit. We want to try to be as efficient as possible here. So we're gonna actually run out of fuel pretty soon. And now we just have we have a single Terrier engine to propel us to orbit. This does not look good. So what's wrong with this? Well, we want to save this entire stage for when we're already in orbit. So I'll tell you what, that's not gonna work. I apologize for going back and forth, but this, I did announce that this was gonna be a rocket building episode, and pretty much you can think of these as simulations until we get a workable design. I think one of the things we can do is actually trade these for bigger solid fuel boosters. We have the option of the backs. Let's see how those perform. So we grab them again. There you go. Make sure they're staged correctly. Yes, good. Perfect. Let's look at the numbers. Everything looks fine. So we have the same. The only thing that we changed is the first stage, and you can see the first stage has plenty of delta V. Not plenty, but you know, twice the amount we had before. It should have a workable thrust weight to ratio, and so let's just try this out. My hope is that the extra delta V provided by the big boosters is gonna be enough. Whoa, what happened there? We had some nasty tilting going on. So of course we have the problem that right now we have a lot of winglets in the center of the rocket, and that's gonna cause quite a bit of instability. So I'm really looking forward to ditching these rockets here. And again, as these become empty, they just become dead weight. Okay, so we pop those off, and we try to recover our direction a little bit. Just tugging east ever so gently. Gotta say, this is pretty stable as far as rockets go. We do have, again, a little bit of roll happening there. Not too bad. So, our first fuel tanks are gone. We're 15,000 meters. Apoapse over 30,000. Raising pretty fast. I think we're in quite a bit better shape this time. The key thing is that we need this engine to get us into orbit. So we need to have fuel in the tank by the time we get up high like this. Turn our RCS on. Approach apoapse a little bit. We're gonna be aiming for like 40 seconds away from apoapse. So question is this enough fuel? I think it's gonna be real tight, to be honest. I think we might need to upgrade this fuel tank to something bigger. same time, our thrust to weight ratio is already not fantastic. I think this is kind of just enough. So if we add more weight, it might become too low. That's just a feeling I have. And again, I think we don't have enough to push us into orbit here. You can see our periaps is still very low. We're gonna run out of fuel soon. There we go, our final stage. So there are problems here. Namely that well, we're just being propelled by, sorry, I was thinking there about the numbers. We're being propelled ever so slowly by this little engine, and I just don't think it'll be enough to get us into orbit. I could be wrong. I mean, it won't be a circular orbit for sure, because we're way past apoaps, but we might be able to just make orbit. But again, this is already underperforming. This is not the performance we want out of our rocket. Again, we want to preserve this entire fucking stage towards just the space flight portion of things. You can see our apoaps is extremely high compared to our periaps. So I'm gonna cut it here, because could we get into orbit and maybe go to the moon and back as well? Probably. But the whole point of this episode is figuring out a good rocket design. And I apologize if this frustrates you, but it's very important to me to figure out something that works. And so I think, the way I see it, we might be able to just add another fuel tank. What happens if we add like one of these big fuel tanks? What happens to our delta V? So first stages are fine. We have a little issue when we're just in this stage here. We don't have a lot of thrust, but could be enough. It could be enough, honestly. I mean, it's interesting to see that just removing this thing here, yeah, we have 1000 delta V in that stage, and with this thing on we had like 1600. So it's not a lot of extra delta V, but it could potentially make a difference. So another thing that I do want to try here, it could be a mistake, but I do want to try it, is having Terrier engines on the sides. So bear with me here. The idea is that if we do require to use the last stage to push ourselves into orbit, at least we're gonna have more delta V, or more thrust to weight ratio. Okay, so we got some landing lights. Just need that decoupler there. And whoa. Okay. So again, check the numbers. Yeah, the thrust on that stage is pretty subpar. which is a problem. I do recognize that as a problem. Let's give it a shot, see if this works. So this is probably gonna be the last simulation for today. So let's cross our fingers. SAS on, let's fire up. Again, this initial stage is a little bit unstable. We didn't place any winglets there at the bottom, and we have some in the middle of the rocket. So we're just gonna be very conservative with this. Not gonna turn at all. I wonder if those are real places you can go to in the game. I wonder like if they've thought about like how far you can go. Let's switch here. Yeah, I wonder how far you can go in this game in terms of how many planets they've created and so on. I'm sure there's a ton of mods creating extra planets. So our first stage of fuel tanks is going to run out now. Ditch that. Keep tugging at that east direction. And pretty soon we're gonna find out whether or not the modifications we made are actually a step forwards or not. So here we are. So at this point we have about 500 more delta V than we had the previous time around. The drawback is that we have less thrust to weight. So what that tells me is that I have to be a little bit more conservative and start burning a little bit earlier. We got our 70,000 mark. So we're gonna wait until like 50 seconds. Alright, you get yourself aligned. And then you go. So let's see how we do this time. Again, the good thing here is that once this runs out, we're gonna have some actual thrust to get us into orbit if we need to, which we'll probably do, let's be real. So it looks like we're still a little bit far from having the optimal rocket design here. But I think we're pretty close to having something that works very well as a moon lander, as a Minmus lander. And I think we have all the pieces in terms of kind of concepts that we need to apply to have a good rocket design. I think it's just a matter of tinkering a little bit, getting the right tanks in the right places. So we're gonna run out of fuel here, it's fine. At this point we should be able to get into orbit. The only problem again is that we went past our apoapse. So what that means is that our orbit is again not going to be circular. So we can try to just burn a little bit out like this. if that was smart or not, to be honest. Okay, that wasn't smart. I'm just trying to raise my periapse here. Yeah, I think I screwed up and I don't know how to come back from this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna revert this again because we have a serious problem of thrust happening. Having that extra fuel tank actually makes our thrusts just flat out not strong enough. Can you please attach? Oh my god. Almost had it? Okay. So yeah, there's something wrong about our design here. I need this guy here to be more powerful. So I'll rock my brains a little bit and try to figure out what I can do to improve this. But for now, thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you next time.